It's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I wish I could just talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening.
There's a lot to love about the original Dead Space. The survival horror classic has a number of enduring qualities that have made it such a widely beloved title over the last decade and a half. And its gripping story, which keeps throwing surprises at you one after the other, is high on that list. The Dead Space remake will be launching soon, which means many who never got to experience the original will now be able to do so. If you're in that group, you will, of course, want to head into the remake without any story spoilers. But if you have played the original and are looking to refresh yourself on its story to better compare it to the remake and see how it's changed, we've got you covered. Here, we're going to take a look back at the 2008 survival horror game and summarize its full story from beginning to end. Before we get into the actual narrative of Dead Space proper, we're going to spend some time talking about some of the lore and backstory, because a lot of that stuff goes on to play a crucial role in the story, especially in the latter hours. Dead Space is set in the year 2508, by which time humanity is no longer bound to the Earth and has spread out and colonized other parts of the galaxy. More than anything, however, that was necessitated by the imminent threat of extinction. With Earth's resources nearly exhausted, humanity was on the brink of collapse, and in hopes of finding the key to survival, decided that it would begin mining other planets for their resources. And that's where the Concordance Extraction Corporation, or the CEC, come into the picture to save the day, engineering ships known as planet crackers designed for that very purpose, with the USG Ishimura serving as the crown jewel of the fleet. By the time Dead Space kicks off, the planet cracker ships the Ishimura in particular, which has carried out a number of successful operations, and humanity finds itself in a much better and more stable place. There is, of course, still conflict out there, as there always is. To understand that conflict, however, we need to first talk about the markers. Nearly 300 years before the events of Dead Space, a mysterious alien structure known as the Marker was found buried on Earth by a researcher known as Michael Altman. Its origins, exact purpose and function, and effects were unknown, but it didn't take long for humanity to figure out that if left unchecked, the Marker could have a cataclysmic impact not only on Earth, but far beyond. Through the actions of Altman, the Marker was buried and made to go into hibernation, so to speak. But the seedy elements of the human race could not resist the allure of its powers. Using the code buried within the Marker, they reverse-engineered and created their own copies known as Red Markers, and placed each of them on distant and remote planets, intending to retrieve them far into the future in the hopes of being able to learn more about their effects, and whether or not it could be effectively weaponized. The discovery of the Marker also led to the creation of the group known as Unitologists. One of the planets housing a Red Marker was Aegis 7, where scientists and researchers were posted as they studied its effects. Unsurprisingly, things went drastically wrong. The Red Marker had a devastating effect on the people around it, leading to hallucinations, extreme paranoia, and more, all of which in turn led to erratic and violent behavior, and even led to homicidal and suicidal behavior. On top of that, it was discovered a bit too late that the Red Marker's primary purpose was to send out signals with specific instructions that could turn dead flesh into hideous monstrosities known as necromorphs, all driven to the same purpose of replicating the original Marker and spreading the necromorphs far and as wide as possible. The scientists on Aegis 7 were killed, the planet itself was abandoned, the Marker was left behind, and the Earth government ended up quarantining the planet and setting it off limits to everyone by law. Curiously enough, the orbit of Aegis 7 serves as the backdrop of Dead Space's story. In the midst of an illegal mining operation on Aegis 7, the planet cracker USG Ishimura sent out a distress signal to the CEC, at which point another ship, the USG Kellion, was sent to investigate. And this is where we find our protagonist Isaac Clarke, the crew's engineer, who is aboard the Kellion alongside his crew members, including Security Chief Zach Hammond and Computer Specialist Kendra Daniels. Isaac, interestingly enough, has a personal stake in the mission as well, His girlfriend, Nicole Brennan, is a senior medical officer on the Ishimura, and he's heard nothing but radio silence from her for long enough that he's beginning to get more than just a little worried. As Dead Space kicks off, the Kellion arrives at Aegis 7, floating in orbit around it. But what's supposed to be a routine investigation of a distress call quickly goes haywire. Due to a docking malfunction, the Kellion crashes into the Ishimura and lands in its docking bay, badly damaged. The crew proceeds into the innards of the Ishimura to make contact with the Planet Cracker's crew, but discovers promptly that there is no crew to be discovered. The ship has been completely abandoned, with no one to be found. Quickly, however, the Kellion's crew begins to get an idea of exactly what went wrong on the Ishimura. They are attacked by terrifying alien monstrosities, the Necromorphs, and a couple of members of the Kellion's crew are killed, with Isaac, Hammond, and Daniel standing as the only survivors. Separated from the other two, Isaac is ordered by Hammond to return to the Ishimura's docking bay and repair the Kellion so they can make a quick escape. When he gets there, however, the Kellion too is attacked by a swarm of Necromorphs, and the ship is completely destroyed, with Isaac himself only barely managing to survive the resulting explosion. Now, stuck on a ship that seems to be teeming with Necromorphs with no way of fleeing or contacting anyone, the Kellion's surviving crew realizes that their only path forward in the short term is to ensure that the Ishimura's failing core systems are kept functioning so they can stay alive. And as their only engineer, Isaac is unfortunately enough for him. The man for the job, which in turn takes him on a trek through the ship. Making his way through the Ishimura while fighting off the Necromorphs, Isaac also has run-ins with Nicole, and though she seems to be behaving strangely, he is, at the very least, relieved that she isn't dead. But more on that later. As Isaac travels through the ship and repairs its functions, he also learns the full extent of what happened to it and its crew. As it turns out, the captain of the Ishimura, Benjamin Mateus, was in secret a unitologist, and together with the other members of the movement in the Ishimura's crew, he led the ship to the Aegis 7 in spite of the government-mandated quarantine on the planet. The reason for that, as you may have guessed, was the red marker. The unitologists were able to acquire information that told them that there was a red marker on Aegis 7, and hoping to retrieve the artifact, they dispatched Mateus and the Ishimura to the planet. Unsurprisingly, not long after arriving at the planet, the crew of Ishimura, whether on the ship or on the planet, began feeling the effects of the red marker. Extreme hallucinations, paranoia, the works. That in turn led to waves of suicide and killings, while at the same time the ship also started getting overtaken by a mysterious fleshy growth. That in turn led to the outbreak of the Necromorph Infection, and the colony of Aegis 7 and Ishimura itself were attacked by swarms of the monsters, who began indiscriminately infecting, killing, and turning everyone, further multiplying their own numbers. Amidst all this, before its systems and communications were shut down, a member of the Ishimura's crew was able to launch a distress beacon, the very same beacon that would bring the Kellion right to Aegis 7. While the Earth government has also become aware of the Ishimura's illegal mining operation on the planet, of the discovery of the red marker, and of the unitologists' involvement in the matter. Hoping to deal with the situation and make sure their long-buried secrets don't become known to more people, the Earth government dispatched its own operatives to Aegis 7. That team arrives while Isaac, Hammond, and Daniels are aboard the Ishimura in the military ship known as the USM Valor. However, the Valor's fortunes also quickly turn sour not long after its arrival, as it picks up a damaged and jettisoned escape pod that, you guessed it, ends up infecting it with the Necromorph Infection and ravaging it as well. But of course, though things only seem to be going from bad to worse, the Valor is also the best shot the Kellion's crew now has at escaping. With Hammond's help, Isaac is able to retrieve the Valor's Singularity Core, which can be used to repair an escape shuttle and use it to get far away from the Aegis 7. Though, of course, that doesn't go off without a hitch either, with Hammond ending up getting killed by a brute of a Necromorph in the process. Not long afterward, Isaac is contacted by one of the last surviving members of the Ishimura's crew, Chief Science Officer Dr. Terrence Kine, who himself is a unitologist, but has, by now, obviously seen that the marker isn't something to be trifled with. He tells Isaac that the source of the Necromorph is a massive fleshy monster on Aegis 7 known as the Hive Mind, which began its violent attack on the colony not long after the Ishimura's arrival. According to Kine's deductions, the marker has the power to suppress the Hive Mind and trap it back inside the planet, though the only way to do that would be by taking the marker back to the surface of Aegis 7. Isaac agrees to help Kyne, but as the two are in the process of loading the marker onto the now repaired shuttle, their plans are abruptly cut short. Daniels arrives on the scene and kills Kyne, and reveals herself to be an agent of the Earth government, sent here to retrieve the marker. She takes the shuttle and attempts to leave, but Nicole arrives on the scene, perhaps a bit too conveniently, and helps him stop the shuttle from leaving. Daniels flees from the scene in an escape pod, while Isaac gets on board the shuttle and flies it to the Aegis 7 with the marker in tow. He arrives at the colony on Aegis 7 and places the marker back where it was found in the excavation site, which turns out to be a colossal mistake. Nicole appears once again, telling him that they have been made whole, and the marker begins shooting out massive waves of energy. That, in turn, ends up destroying the gravity tethers holding a large chunk of Aegis 7 several miles above the surface, sending it plummeting through the air towards the planet. The moment it hits, the planet will be destroyed, and Isaac obviously can't be there when it happens. As he makes his escape, however, Daniels arrives once again, and the full extent of Dead Space mysteries is revealed. She shows Isaac a transmission that reveals that Nicole is dead, and has been for a while. Rather than turning into a necromorph when the Ishimura was taken over by the infection, she chose to kill herself. Since the Kellian's arrival, the hive mind has been using her hallucinations in an attempt to get Isaac to do what it wants above all else, which is to be reunited with the marker. Daniels attempts to take the marker and flee, but she's attacked and killed by the hive mind, following which it turns its attention to Isaac. The fight that follows is a grueling and harrowing one, but Isaac manages to defeat the monstrosity, and in the nick of time. He boards Daniel's shuttle and flees, leaving the marker behind. Behind him, the rock crashes into Aegis 7, destroying the planet, the marker, and the necromorphs. And that's it. The full story of Dead Space. With its upcoming remake, developer Motive Studios is promising to remain faithful to the original story, especially where the core story beats are concerned, though the game will also be introducing several new story elements, from changed scenes and new side quests to elements of the lore that weren't in the original game, but were introduced later in the sequels and the comics. How that will enrich Dead Space's story and how well the remake will be able to adapt it remains to be seen. But with the game launching for PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on January 27th, thankfully, we won't have to wait too long to find out.
Isaac, it's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry.
Hey, did you know that we at Gaming Bolt upload new videos every day? Stick around, drop a like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and let us know what kind of content you'd like to see in the future with a comment below.